You know that moment when you're at the grocery store looking at your cart and something feels off? You didn't go crazy. No expensive steaks, no fancy imported cheese, just regular stuff, eggs, bread, some chicken, maybe a few vegetables. Then the cashier scans everything and that number pops up on the screen. $150 for 1 week of food for just you. And you're standing there thinking, wait, when did this happen? Or maybe it's your electric bill. You open it and see $280. It's March. You barely turned the heat on. How is it this much? Or your car insurance shows up in the mail, same coverage, same car, no accidents, no tickets. But somehow it's $60 more per month now. If any of this sounds familiar, I need you to hear me on this. You're not losing your mind. You're not terrible with money. And you're far from alone in feeling this way. Something really important broke in how our economy works. And what I'm about to walk you through isn't the story you're getting from the news. Here's the thing almost nobody's saying out loud. Your paycheck is in a race. It was never built to win. And every month it falls further behind. Let me show you what I mean. Think about how your pay actually works. Maybe once a year, you get a raise. 3% if things go well. 4% if you really crushed it. That's it. One bump, and then nothing changes for 12 straight months. Your pay moves in a straight line. Slow, steady, predictable. Now think about the prices you deal with. Your landlord can raise rent with a month's notice. Insurance companies reset your rates twice a year. Your grocery bill changes every single week. Gas prices move every day. And now there are computer programs that change prices by the hour, based on what they think you'll pay. Prices don't move in straight lines anymore. They curve, they shift, they adjust all the time. And they're set up to take as much as you can handle before you break. Look at what happened since 2019 to the stuff you can't live without. Car insurance went up 56%. Electricity jumped 40%. Meat, chicken, fish, all up 38%. Going out to eat is up 35%. Rent climbed 30%. Even bread, just plain bread, costs 30% more than 5 years ago. Take another look at that list. What's the one thing all those items have in common? You can't skip any of them. You can't choose to just not buy them. You can't avoid them. You need power in your house. You need food. You need somewhere to live. Most places legally require you to have car insurance. That's why it's a trap. And it gets worse from here. Let's say last year you got a 4% raise. Sounds decent on paper, right? You're making progress. Okay, but let's actually do the math here. Electricity up 40%. Insurance up 30 to 60%. Food up 25 to 40%. That 4% raise you got? It's not moving you forward. It's not even keeping you where you were. It's just helping you lose ground slower. Here's what this looks like with real numbers. Say you're making $2,500 more this year than last year. That's not nothing. But the costs you can't control, the ones you can't negotiate or put off, those went up $6,000. You're not staying even, you're falling behind. $2,500 behind. Every single year. Your paycheck still shows up every 2 weeks. It just doesn't go as far. And you feel it every time you buy something. Here's the part that really stings, though. That raise you got? The one that looked good when your boss told you about it? That's not what actually lands in your bank account. First, taxes take their piece. Then health insurance premiums come out. Then retirement contributions. Then a bunch of other stuff you didn't even pick. By the time that money hits your account, you're already down to half of what you thought you were getting. Meanwhile, when prices go up, they hit you full force. No deductions, no breaks, just the entire cost, right there when you swipe your card. This is why those wage statistics you hear about feel like they're talking about a different world than the one you're living in. When 60% of what you make is already spoken for before you make a single choice. Things like housing, utilities, food, getting to work, insurance. even a solid raise can't fix the problem. There's just no room left to move. And here's where it gets really frustrating. The way prices work now isn't random. Companies aren't just reacting to what things cost them anymore. They're targeting you specifically. Companies know exactly how much you can afford before you stop buying from them. They know your income range. They track what you buy. They can tell when you're stretched thin and when you've got a little breathing room. And they set prices right at that edge, right before you'd actually say no and walk away. You're not dealing with fixed prices anymore. You're up against systems that adjust faster than any person ever could. This is also why two incomes doesn't guarantee you're okay, like it used to. Having two people working doesn't double your safety when your shared costs are going up faster than both paychecks combined. Working extra hours doesn't fix things when your insurance premium can suddenly jump $300 to $600 in one renewal. So here's the question everyone's thinking but doesn't want to ask out loud. What do you do when what you make just can't keep up? You do what millions of people are doing right now. You fill the gap the only way that's left. You borrow money. Not for fun stuff. Not for a vacation or new furniture or anything like that. You borrow just to make it through the month. This is where the whole economy stops running on what people actually earn and starts running on borrowed time. Credit cards that used to be for emergencies or big one-time purchases now cover basic survival. Food goes on the card. Electric bills go on the card. Insurance, gas, doctor visits. The numbers tell the story. Credit card debt in America just passed $1.3 trillion, higher than it's ever been. And interest rates, over 20% on average. Some cards charge 25, some hit you with 30. This isn't people being careless. This is filling the gap. This is what happens when the cost of just existing goes up faster than what you're paid, and you're out of other options. Buy now, pay later programs exploded for the same reason. Not because they're convenient, but because they let you turn a $400 bill into 4 payments of $100, which feels just barely doable instead of completely impossible. The total is the same, but the weight of it shifts enough that you can say yes. Here's what makes this really dangerous, though. Short-term credit assumes things will get better. It assumes your income will catch up. It assumes prices will level off and you'll pay everything back. But when prices stay high and wages can't catch up, you don't pay these balances off. They just roll over. Month after month after month, you go from trying to pay things off to just making minimum payments. Interest becomes a permanent part of your budget. Money going out that gets you nothing. No food, no shelter, no security, just drag. At 22% interest, if you're carrying $10,000, that costs you $2,200 a year, just in interest, just to keep that debt alive. $2,200 pulled out of your life that does absolutely nothing for you. And over time, this is what happens. You start treating your credit limit like it's extra income. Your emergency fund becomes whatever room you have left on your cards. Any financial cushion you had just quietly disappears, long before you ever miss a payment. On paper, everything looks fine. Bills are getting paid. People are still spending. The economy looks healthy. But underneath, it's falling apart. The danger here is that debt hides the problem. From the outside, spending looks normal. It looks like people are doing okay. So the people making decisions look at the data and think everything's fine. But the source of that spending completely changed. When people are using credit to pay for survival instead of income, every month you're borrowing from a future that's running out fast. Eventually, there's nothing left to borrow from. This is why even small changes in interest rates hit so hard right now. Every extra percentage point doesn't just make borrowing more expensive. It pushes people who are already barely hanging on over the edge. One rate increase can make minimum payments unaffordable. And when that happens, things don't fall apart slowly. They collapse fast. There's no easy way out when you're borrowing to cover necessities. There's nothing left to cut, nothing left to trim. defaulting doesn't free up money. It kills your access to credit completely. The one thing you were using to stay afloat. And this doesn't stay personal. When more people start defaulting, lenders crack down everywhere. Credit gets harder to get. That removes the last option people had. Then spending drops hard. Not because prices came down, but because the ability to borrow just disappeared. So you're probably wondering, how did we even get here? Why do prices keep going up when people are clearly running out of money? The answer isn't what most people think. The economy right now isn't driven by people wanting to buy more stuff. It's driven by businesses trying not to go under. Prices are going up, not because customers have money, but because companies are fighting to survive when their own costs keep exploding. Let me break this down because it matters. First, borrowing costs. For years, businesses could borrow cheap money, 3%, 2%, sometimes even less. Now, interest rates are 2 or 3 times what they were just a few years ago. A company that borrowed at 3% in 2020 might be looking at 7% or higher now. On a $100 million loan, that's an extra $4 million a year, just in interest. That money doesn't come from making better products. It comes straight from higher prices you pay. Then there's operating costs, and these never come back down. Business insurance jumped 30 to 50% across most industries. Property insurance doubled in some places. Liability coverage went through the roof. These aren't optional. They get paid every month whether business is great or barely surviving. Energy makes all of this worse. Electricity is up over 40% since 2019. Diesel costs way more. Natural gas bounces around unpredictably. And energy affects everything: making products, shipping them, processing food, keeping things cold, running stores. When energy costs go up and stay up, they lift all prices with them. Every product, every service, everything, even labor costs and workers. Aren't the bad guys here? Add pressure. Once wages go up, companies can't bring them back down without firing people. So instead of layoffs, they raise prices. This isn't greed, it's survival. And every business is doing it at once. But here's what really breaks how things used to work. There's not enough competition left. In industry after industry, just a few companies control most of what's available. 4 companies. 5. Maybe 6. When only a handful of players run the market, they stop competing on price. Nobody wants to be first to lower prices because it doesn't bring back enough customers to make up for the lost money. So prices stay high. Even when sales drop. Even when fewer people are buying. This creates what people call price floors. Once something gets repriced to cover higher insurance, energy, labor, regulations, and borrowing costs, bringing that price down becomes impossible without losing money. These floors lock inflation in place. Demand can drop. Stores can be emptier. Sales can slow way down, but prices stay put. Instead, pricing just shifts around. Fees replace the main price. Extra charges show up. Packages get smaller. Subscriptions become required. Services that used to be together get split up and sold separately. The number on the tag might look the same, but what you're actually paying keeps climbing. And the system feeds itself. Higher prices mean less demand. Less demand means less volume sold. Less volume means higher cost per item. Higher cost per item justifies higher prices. What looks like inflation that won't go away is actually a loop feeding itself, and nobody can break out. This is why what the government does doesn't match what you're dealing with. Rate hikes are supposed to slow spending and bring down inflation, but they also make it more expensive for businesses to borrow, and that cost gets passed right to you. The tools meant to fix inflation can actually lock it in place for a while. What you end up with isn't a normal market anymore. It's a market that only stops when people are completely tapped out. People don't stop buying because prices dropped. They stop buying because they literally can't go any further. And that's when things start breaking. But it gets sneakier than that. When obvious price increases started making people angry, the system changed. Prices still go up. They just do it quietly now, bit by bit, in ways most people don't notice until it's too late. Let me show you how this works. The old way was straightforward: price on the shelf, rate on the bill. Clear numbers you could see and compare. That breaks down when people are already stretched because big, obvious price jumps make people mad. They push back. They switch brands. They complain. They stop buying. So the system adapted. And what replaced it is way more dangerous. Algorithms run pricing now. And prices aren't fixed anymore. They adapt. Software changes prices in real time based on where you live, what time it is, how much stock is left, what you bought before, what device you're using, and how much they think you'll pay. The exact same thing can cost wildly different amounts depending on who's buying, when, and how. Studies found price differences of 15 to 30% for identical items. Same product, same seller, different price, all based on who you are. This isn't regular inflation. This is personal repricing, and it's happening to you right now whether you know it or not. Then fees do the rest. Instead of raising the price you see, companies break costs into pieces and put them back together at checkout. Processing fee, convenience fee, delivery fee, regulatory fee, energy charge, service fee, platform fee. These almost never show in the advertised price, but they're more and more of what you actually pay. A bill that used to be one clean charge now has a stack of tiny charges, each one justified, each one required, none of them optional. This is on purpose. You're way less likely to get mad about a $3 fee than a $30 price jump. Even though 10 fees do the exact same thing, it spreads the hit across so many small cuts that the total becomes unavoidable, but you're kind of numb to it. Subscriptions lock everything in. Services that used to be one-time purchases become monthly charges. $12 a month feels manageable, easy to ignore. But 12 subscriptions at $12 each quietly becomes $1,800 a year. Across dozens of services, apps, memberships, platforms, you're bleeding money in ways you don't even track. And canceling? They make it deliberately hard. Phone calls, logins, confirmation emails, multiple steps, all designed so even subscriptions you don't use keep taking money month after month. Inflation becomes automatic, permanent, invisible. Package changes finish the job. Prices look the same on the shelf. But what you're getting shrinks. Less weight, less volume, less coverage, shorter service. Something that cost $5 last year still costs $5, but now you're getting 10% less. Sometimes 20% less. And most people never notice because the price didn't change. This is inflation dressed up as stability. And it flies under everyone's radar. None of this is accidental. None of it is random. These systems exist because obvious price increases hit a wall. People are tapped out. They can't pay more. So pricing had to go from obvious to surgical. The goal isn't selling more. The goal is squeezing more money from each person without making them quit entirely, and the numbers show it works. Companies using fancy pricing tools report profit jumps of 5 to 15% without selling one extra product. That gain doesn't come from being more efficient. It doesn't come from innovation. It comes from pulling more value from every purchase you make. What makes this really dangerous is it doesn't show up in the data. Official inflation measures can't easily track dynamic fees, shrinking packages, personal pricing, and subscription bleeding. So the economy looks calmer in statistics than it feels in your real life. The pain is real, the pressure is real, but it's spread out in ways that are nearly impossible to measure. And the system keeps feeding itself. When business costs go up, they lean harder on algorithms. As algorithms work, competition gets weaker. When everyone uses the same tools, prices stop competing and start moving together. Not through cheating, just through shared technology. This is why prices never get relief even when demand drops. The system doesn't wait for things to recover. It just adjusts how much it takes to match exactly how much stress you can handle. When people push back, prices don't drop. They just hide better. Let me take you back to where all this started, because knowing the beginning helps you see where it's headed. It starts small. So small you probably didn't catch it at first. Your grocery bill went up $10. 1 week, 20 the next. Then suddenly you're spending an extra $100 a month and you can't pinpoint when it happened. Your electric bill added some fees you don't remember seeing. Your car insurance came and the number made you look twice. None of this exploded overnight. It crept up, slowly, quietly, like water rising around your ankles, gentle enough you adjust, until suddenly it's at your knees, then your waist, and you can't touch bottom anymore. You can absorb one increase, maybe two, but when everything climbs at once, that's when the math stops working. Economics books say when prices go up, people adjust, buy less, find cheaper options, adapt. Sounds reasonable, until you realize the expensive things are things you literally can't live without. You can't use less electricity when it's freezing. You can't shop for cheaper rent when nothing's available. You can't skip car insurance when the law requires it. What looks flexible on paper is completely stuck in real life. This is why spending data doesn't mean what it used to. People aren't buying because they feel good about the economy. They're buying because they have to survive. Essentials became a trap. You keep paying no matter what, even when you can't afford it. And here's what makes this whole thing so messed up. The official inflation number might look okay. The government says prices are only up around 20% since 2019. Not great, but not disaster level, except that average hides reality. The things that eat most of your paycheck, the stuff you buy every week, those exploded way past 20%. When over half your money goes to housing, power, food, transportation, and insurance, just one jumping 10 to 15% in a year can wreck everything. And these costs don't go up alone. They push each other higher. Fuel goes up. Food follows because shipping costs more. Energy climbs. Rent goes up because landlords pay more. Electricity spikes. Making stuff costs more. So products cost more. These aren't separate hits. They stack. Each one justifies the next. By the time you see a price in a store, that cost got added 3 or 4 times already. What makes this cycle different from before is when it hit. These huge increases didn't come when people had cushions. They came after people already dealt with years of financial stress. Savings from the pandemic? Gone. Emergency funds? Used up. The buffer that could absorb surprises? Doesn't exist. There's no slack left. Nothing to cut except actual quality of life. That's when everything flips. A normal electric bill starts feeling like a luxury. Groceries become something you strategize. Insurance feels like gambling money you don't have. Regular maintenance on your car or house becomes something you delay until it's an emergency costing 3 times more. The economy doesn't crash all at once. It just squeezes, tighter and tighter, month after month, until something gives. And that pressure doesn't stay in your budget. When families have to spend more just to survive, everything else shrinks. People stop buying things they don't absolutely need. Delayed purchases become purchases that never happen. Spending in other areas dries up, spreading like cracks in glass. This is the foundation of the breaking point coming. When survival costs go up faster than your pay can match, prices stop being about choice. They become about force, pay or go without. And you can't go without power, food, and shelter. Once things cross that line, it stops working like a normal market. It works like a pressure system building until something breaks. And this is where it becomes social. When debt can't replace missing income anymore, affordability stops being personal. It becomes a force reshaping how millions act at once. This is where economics becomes something bigger. Living everyday life depends on prices staying reachable. When that breaks, behavior changes. People delay purchases, downgrade their lives, pull back from activities and spending they used to think was normal. They stop fixing things, stop replacing things, stop planning past next month. These aren't protests. Nobody's making statements. These are acts of exhaustion. And when millions make the same exhausted choices at once, it becomes political, whether anyone meant it to or not. Affordability pressure creates anger like almost nothing else. It's not abstract. It's not theory. It's every single day. Elections happen every few years. Prices happen every morning. $4 for gas, $300 power bills, insurance jumping $200 to $500 a month, $1,200 in groceries for a regular household. These numbers hit harder than any speech, harder than any news story. They skip politics entirely and go straight to survival. This is why trust falls apart faster during price shocks than recessions. Job losses are episodes, painful, yes, but specific moments and specific people. Price increases are permanent, universal, relentless. They hit everyone, every day, with no end visible. When wages stall but bills keep resetting higher, people stop believing explanations. Official stories lose power when your receipts prove them wrong. Confidence doesn't fade slowly, it snaps. The pressure changes behavior across society. Spending narrows to bare necessities. Non-essential sectors weaken and collapse. Small shocks trigger big reactions because people are already maxed out. A new $3 fee sparks rage, not because $3 changes your life, but because it's landing on a system already at the edge. When people are operating with zero margin, tolerance for anything more completely disappears. Governments struggle here because price stress ignores messaging. You can cut interest rates, doesn't lower grocery bills. You can announce help programs, doesn't fix insurance resets. You can offer temporary relief, doesn't reverse permanent repricing. Every intervention feels smaller than the problem, and that makes the trust gap wider. What comes from all this isn't rebellion, not revolution, it's withdrawal. People quietly step back from institutions that don't seem responsive to reality. Participation drops. Connections thin. Trust erodes. The economy keeps running on the surface, but underneath, what holds it together is coming apart. This is the real breaking point, not the one most expect. Not when people can't afford luxuries. Not when vacations get canceled or new cars get postponed. It's when people question if participating is even worth it. When working hard, paying bills, and following rules doesn't promise any stability, the system loses something it can't get back: consent. And no announcement, no matter how well meant, can bring that back once it's gone. Prices don't just measure inflation. They measure something deeper. They measure if the system still works for the people in it. And when basic life costs keep climbing month after month while income and help stall, the final message doesn't need words. It's already priced in. Because a system that has to be financed with debt, endured quietly, and justified with endless excuses already crossed a line. And prices keep climbing. The question now isn't if this can last. Anyone with a calculator knows it can't. The real question is what happens when it breaks. And if anyone's ready when it does. If this helped you understand what's really happening to your paycheck and why everything feels so much harder than it should, do me a favor. Hit subscribe. Share this. Because nobody should fight this system alone without understanding how it works.